Ever tried to take apart a pallet and you ended up with splinters, broken boards, and a bad attitude? Me too, but this tool claims to fix all of that. So today we're gonna test it out and see if it's actually worth the money. Hey DIYers, it's Ricky with Fixter, and today we're testing a tool that promises to make pallet teardown easy. If you're into budget projects, pallets are a gold mine, but taking them apart, that's the part that sends people back to the lumberyard. So I'm gonna test this pallet breaker head on against a good old fashioned hammer and pry bar and see how much effort and time this actually saves us, as well as keeping the boards intact. I'm not one that likes to keep a whole bunch of extra random tools around that each only do one job. So a tool like this, it's not just a matter of is it worth the money, but is it worth the space and the hassle of having to hang on to it? So stick around to the end to find out if getting a tool like this is worth it for you, or if you're better off to just stick with the tried and true old-fashioned method. For today's matchup, we've got the claw hammer plus a pry bar versus the pallet breaker. The idea behind this tool is pretty clever. You're supposed to be able to lift on both sides of the support piece, and it's gonna pry that board up, again, from each side, so you get a lot less splitting and board breaking. And now we're about to see if this tool actually works or if that's just marketing. Because if it doesn't, I just spent 50 bucks on a fancy metal wishbone. So this is the test we're gonna run today. We're gonna see, one, how long it takes to disassemble a full pallet using each method. We're going to see how much damage is done. So how many of the boards actually come out whole versus how many crack and split. We'll see how much effort it takes to actually do the work. If one of these is substantially easier, that'll be good to know. We're gonna see how much effort it's gonna take to do any cleanup after the fact, removing extra nails and that kind of stuff. It might be really similar for both of them, but we'll see. And then we'll talk about the tool durability and the comfort. So, I mean, we're gonna see if using one of these different methods ends up causing a lot of fatigue over time, that sort of stuff. So stick around, we're gonna jump into the test right now. All right, let's start with the hammer and pry bar. Ready, set, go. There we go. Done. Okay, so for the hammer and pry bar, we managed to save 13 out of the 15 boards in that pallet. I am gonna say the effort level is 5 flames. That's our starting point that we can compare the pallet breaker tool to. Now let's jump into the pallet breaker and see if this one's gonna be any better. Now I don't actually have 2 of the exact same pallets, so we'll normalize the time as well as the boards saved by how many boards there actually are. But this was the most similar pallet I had. It's very similar, it's nailed across 4 different places. The biggest difference is there's just a few more boards, it's a little longer. So here we go. Time. All right, so here's my takeaway for the pallet breaker tool. It was easier to use. I'm gonna give you a 3 out of 5 flames on the difficulty, the effort that's required. You can also see that I was able to do it faster, but also this time I had 19 boards and I saved 19 out of 19. I only had 1 break and it was already rotted through. I could see that it was broken before I even started. So I'm not gonna attribute that to the tool. 19 out of 19 boards saved. So let's compare the two. You can see all the data here side by side. So here's how it breaks down. Time, the hammer and pry bar was slower. The pallet breaker, obviously, faster, especially on a board by board basis. Effort, the hammer and pry bar, that was a 5 flames out of 5 flames, high effort. The pallet breaker, much less. I'll add, I didn't have to be bent over, crouched over, so not as much effort on the back either. Board damage. The hammer and pry bar definitely had more cracking, and the pallet breaker, less cracking. I was able to save all the boards as long as the boards were in decent shape. Cleanup, it's the same either way. In either case, every nail that was in the boards is still in the boards, and I'm gonna have to pound those out with a hammer. So you still need a hammer no matter which you do. So the cost for these two, the hammer and pry bar, it's cheap. You probably already have these, at least the hammer. The pallet breaker, I'm gonna say it's a moderate cost, $30 to $60. The one I bought was a little bit under 50. The bigger issue for me with having this as a tool that basically does one thing is having to store a tool that only does one thing. Now I will say the pallet breaker definitely saved a few boards and it was a little bit easier, but it's still not magic. The tool itself is a little bit heavy. You need some muscle, you need some patience, you need some grit. But with those things, you're gonna be able to take these pallets apart and do some really cool projects with them. I'm actually gonna be using them to build a little lawn shed that I'll show in another video that we'll link to here at the end. So here's the final verdict as far as I'm concerned. If all you're doing is breaking apart a pallet or two here and there because you do a couple of craft projects with them, just use a hammer and pry bar. It didn't take that much longer. I was still able to save almost all of the boards. And if you're a little more careful and you're not trying to hurry, you could probably save all of them. But if you're breaking down pallets on a fairly regular basis, even one a month, I'd say you're probably gonna save a fair amount of time and effort getting a pallet breaker tool. It'll easily pay for itself in the saved wood and in the saved frustration. But whichever route you go, the biggest tool here today is patience. And maybe an updated tetanus shot. So what about you? What do you use to break apart pallets? Do you use a pallet breaker tool? Do you want to try using a pallet breaker tool? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like tool tests like this one, you're gonna want to subscribe to this channel. We do this kind of stuff here all the time. And once that video is ready, I'll post it here. You'll be able to see how I'm able to build a shed using free wood and some other free stuff. I'm able to do it super duper cheap because, well, I was willing to put in a little bit of sweat equity and buy a $50 tool. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you in the next video. Well, it's not like I needed that one anyway.